The message arrived at 2:17 a.m., glowing on my phone like a small, living thing. I hadn't heard that sound in years, the specific chime I had assigned to her name back when names still meant promises. For a moment, half asleep, I thought it was a memory pretending to be real. My hand hovered above the screen, my chest tight, my breath shallow, as if opening it might release something dangerous into the room. Outside, the city was quiet in that fragile way it only ever is before dawn, when even pain seems to hold its breath. I sat up in bed, the sheets cold against my skin, and stared at the notification. Her name. Exactly the same. No emoji, no extra letters, no attempt to soften it. Just her name, standing there like she had never left. I didn't open it. Not yet. I carried the phone with me to the kitchen, switched on the dim light above the sink, and poured myself a glass of water. My hands were shaking so badly that some of it spilled, running over my fingers and dripping onto the floor. I watched it spread, thin and transparent, and felt something similar loosen inside my chest. Years ago, I had imagined this moment in every possible way. Sometimes she apologized. Sometimes she was angry. Sometimes she needed help. Sometimes she just said hello, casual and cruel in its simplicity. In none of those versions did I feel ready. We had loved each other the way people do when they don't yet understand how fragile they are. Loudly, recklessly, as if love were a proof of immortality. She used to laugh with her whole body, throwing her head back, eyes closed, as if joy was something physical she could fling into the world. I used to think that if I watched her long enough, I would learn how to live. We met in a place that smelled like old books and burnt coffee. She was sitting on the floor between two shelves, reading something thick and serious looking, her shoes kicked off beside her. I asked if the book was good. She looked up at me and said, "It's ruining my life in the best way." That was how she spoke. Everything was dramatic, slightly exaggerated, yet completely sincere. For a while, we were inseparable. We talked about the future like it was a shared object, something we could shape with our hands. We planned cities we would move to, apartments with big windows, a dog with a ridiculous name. On quiet nights, she would trace shapes on my arm and tell me things she had never said out loud before. I learned the exact sound of her breathing when she was about to fall asleep. She learned how to pull me back when my thoughts got too dark. Then life, unimpressed by our devotion, did what it always does. It didn't end with a dramatic fight or a single unforgivable betrayal. It ended slowly, painfully, in misunderstandings and silences that grew heavier each time we avoided them. I was afraid of failing. She was afraid of waiting. We both pretended love alone would solve problems it had no language for. The last night we saw each other, rain streaked down the windows, blurring the city into something unrecognizable. She stood by the door, her bag already on her shoulder, and looked at me like she was memorizing a place she might never return to. "Say something," she whispered. I wanted to say everything. I said nothing. When the door closed behind her, the sound echoed through the apartment, final and sharp. I remember thinking I would hear from her the next day. Or the day after that. I didn't. Years passed. Real years, filled with other people, other jobs, other disappointments. I learned how to function without her, how to wake up and go to sleep without checking my phone. I learned how to carry the memory of her without letting it crush me. Or so I told myself. Standing alone in my kitchen at 2:17 a.m., all that careful progress felt thin and easily torn. I finally unlocked the phone. It was only one line. "I don't know if you'll want to hear from me, but I need to say this." I read it again, and again. My throat burned, my eyes stung, and for a second I thought I might drop the phone just to make it stop being real. I typed a response, deleted it, typed another. Every version sounded wrong. Too cold, too eager, too wounded. I placed the phone face down on the counter and leaned forward, pressing my palms against the cool surface, breathing through the sudden weight of everything I had never said. When I turned the phone back over, another message had arrived. "I'm not asking for anything. I just don't want to carry this alone anymore." That was it. That was her. Always honest about her need, even when it scared her. I replied with the simplest truth I had. "I'm here." The typing indicator appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Minutes passed. I sat on the kitchen floor, my back against the cabinet, and let myself feel all of it. The regret, the longing, the quiet hope I had buried so deeply I had almost forgotten its shape. Her reply came just as the first hint of morning crept into the sky. I left because I thought you didn't need me. I told myself you were stronger without me, that I was holding you back. I've lived with that story for years. It turns out it wasn't true. I closed my eyes. I could hear her voice in my head, soft and steady, the way it used to sound when she was telling me something that mattered. I was afraid, I typed. I thought if I admitted how much I needed you, you'd see how broken I was. There it was. The truth, finally spoken, even if it was years too late. We didn't fix everything that night. We didn't make promises or rewrite the past. We talked until the sun rose, about who we had become, about the choices we had made, about the scars we still carried. Some of it hurt. Some of it healed something I didn't know was still open. At one point, she said, I used to imagine running into you somewhere, like a movie. I never thought it would be like this. Neither did I admitted. But I'm glad you wrote. So am I, she said. When the conversation ended, I didn't feel light or magically restored. I felt honest, tired, awake in a new way. The apartment looked the same, but something inside me had shifted, like furniture moved after a long time in the same place. Weeks later, we met for coffee. Neutral ground, daylight. She looked different, older in a way that felt earned. When she smiled, it was smaller, more careful, but it was still hers. We hugged, awkward at first, then longer than necessary, both of us holding on as if to confirm the other was solid and real. We talked for hours. Sometimes we laughed. Sometimes we sat in silence, listening to the sounds around us. There was no rush, no illusion that love alone would be enough this time. Just two people finally brave enough to tell the truth. When we said goodbye, she touched my arm, exactly where she used to, and said, whatever happens, I'm glad we found our voices. So was I. That night, alone again, I lay in bed and stared at the ceiling. The past no longer felt like a closed door or an open wound. It felt like a chapter I had finally read all the way through. Some stories don't end with reunion or loss, but with understanding. With the quiet courage to face what was left unsaid and speak it anyway. As I drifted towards sleep, my phone resting on the nightstand, I realized something simple and powerful.